Welcome to the second panel. Panel 2, my name is Lincoln Bloomfield, and I have the honor of moderating this panel on 1 year after the nuclear deal. And today, I'm joined with a number of very distinguished experts and very accomplished people who know a lot about the nuclear deal. We're not going to talk about the Joint Comprehensive Program of Action. We're going to talk about where we stand a year later, what we've seen, what we've learned, and what we think. And let me frame the issues this way. When we talk about agreements in America, we sometimes use the phrase, the letter and spirit of the agreement. Of course, the letter is the obligations. The spirit is usually the feeling of cooperation that attends the signing of an agreement. So my question is, was there a spirit as well as a letter of the agreement that can be measured and that we can discuss? And President Obama, during the debate over the nuclear agreement, was very defensive about some of the criticisms, and particularly the fact that Iran had done other things during the negotiation in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, domestically. And he made the point that his sole focus was containing the nuclear threat, and that these other issues were external to the negotiation. And the question is that fair? Is that true? Or were, in fact, the President and the U.S. Secretary of State pursuing rapprochement and détente and a new relationship with Iran, along with the terms of the JCPOA? And where do we stand 1 year later? I think it's fair to ask the question of a group this wise and this knowledgeable. Did Iran only come to the table because of economic duress? Were sanctions really the reason they came to the agreement? And I think even Secretary Kerry, in an offhanded remark, said, well, they didn't come just because of sanctions. That's a loaded question. Why did Iran engage in this very high-profile diplomatic action? What brought them to the table? And how do you explain Iran's actions in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and elsewhere? How do you explain the increase in internal repression that we have seen, notwithstanding the fact that the president of Iran was elected as a so-called moderate and with explicit promises to make things better? Is moderation in Iran something different than Americans and maybe Europeans think it is? Does moderation have a different meaning in the Iranian context? And then a very important question that I thought the previous panel was outstanding. The one issue where I'm not sure we opened the door is whether Iran is actually getting stronger, whether its actions are evidence of strength, of success, or whether alternatively these are symptoms of distress and weakness. And I think I've written a piece with Ramesh Separad recently that analyzes the Iranian regime over several years. And I might say that it tracks very closely with Ambassador Ginsburg's excellent analysis that you heard here, and I hope you'll read his piece. His was more of a policy argument. Ours did not dictate policy. It simply analyzed the backdrop to the regime situation. But the analysis was quite similar, with the exception that we showed, we believe, that the regime is facing severe weakness. So we need a fresh assessment of Iran. And to help with this assessment, I am very happy to introduce to you our panelists, who will speak for about 7 minutes, and then we'll have some questions. Comments are fair, but hopefully ending with a question mark. I'm joined here by Mitchell Reese. Ambassador Reese is the president and CEO of Colonial Williamsburg Foundation of Virginia. He's the former policy planning director at the U.S. Department of State. He was a special envoy and ambassador, and he had a great deal to do with policy on Iraq and the Arab-Israeli conflict. Bruno Tertre, the senior research fellow at the Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique, who was on our panel last year, and it's wonderful to have you back again. Frances Townsend, the former Homeland Security Advisor to the United States President, and someone who's well known. You've seen her if you're in America. She is a frequent commentator on television and the media. It's good to have Fran here. Senator Robert Torricelli, well-known former member of the U.S. Senate from New Jersey, 1997 to 2003, 14 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, and someone who everyone in the resistance knows very well as a day-to-day fierce champion of their interests. And finally, Robert Joseph, the United States Special Envoy for Nuclear Nonproliferation and the former Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security until 2007. It's been my great pleasure and honor to know Bob Joseph since we were both very young pups in the first Reagan administration in the Pentagon, and I've been a great admirer of his work and his career ever since.